Good morning everybody, and we're delighted to be welcoming you here for International Women's Day to celebrate social, economic, political and cultural achievements of women. Today we're delighted to be joined by 5 wonderful ladies, leaders in their industries from the sectors of nuclear, pharmaceuticals, IT, home and of course fashion. I'll introduce the panel today. Our very own Sarah Bianchi, my sister, who is our first female managing director in Arighi Bianchi's in our 167-year history. Sarah's took the mantle as MD in April 2021 and has shown great leadership and drive and has a great vision for the future. So we're delighted Maria Stafrin, who is the Global Head of Commercial IT for AstraZeneca, and she helps the pharmaceutical giant achieve industry-leading diversity inclusion numbers related to females in engineering and IT roles. And we're looking forward to hearing about how you go about that, Maria, at AstraZeneca. Tracy Mackay, one of our own as well in Arighi Bianchi's. Tracy has worked many years within the kitchen sector. She has a very successful business within Arighi Bianchi's called Kitchenality. Great to have you here. And Fran, my very good friend, Fran Halsall, 3-time Olympian, world, Commonwealth, European swimming champion. I quote from the performance director of British Swimming, Fran is exceptional, outstanding and extraordinary, and gladiator of the pool.
Oh God.
She now works in the nuclear sector, Cavendish Nuclear, and it'd be really interesting to hear Fran's stories today in this panel about how that is going. And finally, a wonderful story with Jordana Franks, who is owner of Jordana T-Shirt, which is a really wonderful story of entrepreneurialism when you started the cosmetic business when you were 19 years old. And we're really looking forward to hearing that story. This year's theme for International Women's Day is on equity. The theme is embracing equity. I know Fran does work in the education sector as a volunteer with equity. Maybe Fran, you could kick us off with what you do in embracing equity.
Yeah, I mean, for us it's a social value piece through work that we do it really, but the whole equity, everybody having the same, well, not the same opportunities, people need different things to be able to get to the same end goal, same results. And for us, like after COVID, there was a lot of kids in schools and areas that we work who weren't at the levels of their peers when it came to reading skills. So we partnered with a company called TutorMate, which is basically, for those children, they get an extra 30 minutes a week with one of us to be able to access tools online digitally, to be able to do games to improve their reading and read to us, and just spend 30 minutes a week doing that to try and get them back up to the levels of where they should be with all their peers. So it's that people need different things. They need that extra bit of help at school to be able to get to the same levels as their peers in their classrooms. So that's what we're doing currently, and it's really good fun. Love it.
Brilliant. No. And is there any on the panel on that embracing equity piece?
Yeah, I mean, I can say a couple of things. For us, I think it's still an educational journey in terms of the whole D&I agenda, and I think at the moment we're working hard to kind of educate people on neurodiversity. And in industry of science and pharma, you can probably imagine, even though we don't talk about it, there is a huge spectrum of different people, and trying to recognize that and so on in the workplace, which I think is something maybe people don't always remember.
Maybe start with you, Jordana, if I may. Why do you think International Women's Day is important, and do you think days like this help to highlight inequalities and drive positive change?
I think in the industry I'm in, it's very female dominated. Most of my counterparts that are owners of makeup companies are women. So I think highlighting those successes in the industry is fantastic. But I think we should celebrate International Women's Day every day. I don't think it should be a specific day. It should just be equal all the time, especially from my side of the industry. There isn't many men, so every day is International Women's Day.
Good answer. Can I give you the mic to Tracy?
I think that with our industry over the years, it's been mainly male dominated. So it's been quite interesting over the last sort of probably 15 years where we've ended up, women have taken over that part of things. And not being female chauvinistic, women are sort of head of the household generally.
Yeah.
And I think that the lifestyles have changed so much that I think that's coming across more and more now, which is great. But it's interesting because I've got a young colleague that I'm actually training up to do project management side. So he's male. So it's quite a nice sort of balance really, that we can introduce the male and the female connection with that, which is quite different than what it has been in the past. So yeah, and it's very exciting, very challenging, but good.
Brilliant. Sarah?
Yeah, no,
How do you find international?
no, I think what Tracy just said about, especially now, like the women,
Yeah.
probably between sort of 45, 75,
Yeah.
in this, you know, the homewares, are the decision makers, really.
Yeah, massively.
And I think it is great. Probably more women want to get into this environment, because if they're going to be making the decisions for their home, it's quite nice being part of the process from the start, sort of getting involved of what's actually going in the shops.
Fran, International Women's Day, IWD for you?
Yeah, I think people get so busy in their day-to-day lives every day with their head down, working really hard, that it's nice to have a specific time to just reflect and think and inspire and to just hear other people's stories. Like for me, International Women's Day, I like to be able to go on LinkedIn, go on social media and see other women and how they're driving industries forward. And I've come from a sporting industry which, yes, is male dominated, and we'll probably get into that a bit later, and also now working in nuclear engineering. They've got massive goals and it's actually behind where they want to be with the equality male and female balance within that. So the fact that there's a certain point in the year to go, actually, like, a woman can be in sport and be very good at it, a woman can be in engineering and like be very successful in it. I think it's quite important to just reflect and take a moment to reflect on that, because everybody's so busy all the time that just taking a moment to do that is a good thing.
To pause and reflect.
Yeah.
Maria, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we didn't have to have International Women's Day, but, you know, we're not there yet. So I think, I think it's really important to grab every opportunity to highlight and hopefully inspire others, essentially. So.
Sarah, just on, as we deep dive more into the individual in the panel, as I know you are the first female, I don't have to read notes for this, female MD in our business, which stretches back, say, as we know, 168 years. Do you feel pressure? I mean, you feel pressure, obviously we all feel pressure in the business, but because you're a female, to ensure the business thrives under your leadership?
I don't really think it's pressure being a female per se. I think we're a family business, as you say, we've been going a long time, so whoever was to be the next MD, you don't want the family business to stop with you, do you? So there is a huge pressure that it's got to carry on to the next generation. So I don't think it matters if as a man or a woman, you've got that pressure that.
But for those who are going to be listening in, and when it goes out, on the platforms, on LinkedIn, what can you just help us explain the furniture retail sector? What's the gender balance generally in independent and the nationwide one?
I mean, sort of historically, from our point of view, being an independent family business, there are a lot of independent family furniture businesses around, and they historically have all been male dominated. And I was kind of thinking about it the other day, and I suppose when they were set up, however many years ago, it's that traditional role where the husband would have set up the business, the wife might have helped out a bit, looked after the children, and maybe did a bit of admin at home, and then it was the man that sort of led the business. But I just feel, now there are so many more women in the industry. But it's still men. But when you go to shows, you do notice that there are a lot more women actually.
And leading the organisations as well.
Yes, well, the buying group, the buying group we're a member of, AIS, the managing director and the financial director, they're both female, sort of in early 50s. They're fairly recent appointments. So lots of sales directors in the business, and suppliers are female. So it's definitely changed, it's definitely moving on.
And we can't forget our very own financial director, Susan.
Oh yes,
Cunningham.
yes. No, our first non-family board member, financial director Susie. So
Our store manager.
yeah, store manager Lisa. Yes. So yes,
We're doing our
it's
bit.
it's definitely girl power at the moment.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
We're very much in the minority. Fran, I really want to come to you, Fran. I really want to come to you.
I think that's just so nice because since I joined the nuclear industry, in my first month or so, I had to go to the Nuclear Institute Association's annual conference and dinner, which is in December. It's in London. It's at the Grosvenor Hotel. Beautiful
Nice.
setting
Yeah.
for the dinner. Conference all day. But it was the most interesting situation being a blonde young female walking into a 1,200 person conference when everybody's 50 to 65 in suits and grey and balding. It's one way to get attention, that's for sure. But it just showed me, wow, there's so much that needs to be done to kind of move it forward. And especially now with the industry that I'm in, it's kind of, well, we're creating future technology to help net zero and to put more energy on the grid to reduce the cost of living. So it's massively important, and for younger generations who buy into that, and that's like a focal point of what they want to do and how they want to live, then our industry should seem really interesting. But it's still got a bit of a way to go before we get to the point where there's more engineers full stop, but more engineers and female engineers is massive change that's needed.
Could we go back, if I may, to when you were first competing? I'm say Beijing 2008 Olympics, but I know you were competing before at elite level. Were there any barriers as a female in the sports industry, in your industry specifically?
I can give you some interesting examples of the differences, but I don't think I've got a fully formed opinion on whether that is bad or good, because from a physical perspective, women and men are different. So you need different things. So I suppose that's where the equity things come into it, that I actually need a different training set of skills and need different sessions and different things in the gym to be able to get to the level I want to get to, which is the Olympics, compared to what a man probably needs to do to get to the Olympics. So there is differences. And sometimes it could be you're all just bundled into a lane doing exactly the same thing. So that's not really equitable, is it? That everybody's just doing the same thing when it's not specific what I need to be able to get to where I need to get to, because I'm physically different to the boy that I'm trying to race next to me. So, but there's a kind of, when I was growing up, I was quite lucky to be talent identified at quite a young age as somebody that had potential to go to the Olympics. And they had a programme for girls and a programme for boys. So they separated the programmes of talent ID. And the boys got to go and do their A-levels in Australia on the Gold Coast and live out there. And we got to go on training camps in Loughborough. The thinking was that girls getting taken away from home at a younger age potentially wasn't good for them, as a boy can deal with it differently, but that wasn't an option for me. I'd been like, I want to go to Australia. So that was kind of a difference that I was like, okay, it's quite interesting. So there's subtle differences how the boys kind of went about doing things. And got,
Maria, first of all, congratulations on being nominated on the Women in Northern Power Women Awards as well. I must say that's a fantastic achievement to be nominated for that. Maria, AZ, we all know AZ, AstraZeneca, is very active in supporting females within the sector, within your field specifically of IT. Can you tell us a little more about the positive things you as an organisation or you individually are doing, and how a large organisation such as AstraZeneca is ensuring a diverse and balanced team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it kind of starts all the way from the top, to be honest, and I think if anyone kind of Google the D&I agenda for AZ, it's all about diversity of thought, because that's what it comes down to, whether you male, female, or whatever it is, right? And ultimately we think if you have diversity in thought, you can create life-changing medicines to change patients' life. That's what we're trying to aim for. So that kind of keeps it quite simple, and when you have that support from the top, it kind of becomes easier as you cascade down in the different businesses So I run a business within a big business essentially, which is technology, and which is very male-oriented, as you can imagine. And you know, while we're doing a lot of great work, I'm often still the only female in the room, but I can see massive changes happening. And I have this kind of favorite quote that I use a lot, and it's you can't be where you can't see. And I think it's really powerful if you think about it like that. So if I look at the last 3 years, our CIO is now female. First one, I think, ever. I've been there for almost 20 years, so I can't remember anything differently. She has a huge D&I agenda, as you can imagine, and she's aiming for 40% of female senior leaders. And you know, again, you know, that's, you know, we're really looking for 50% as an industry in science, and I think AstraZeneca overall is at 50% in science, but in IT we're still kind of at the 40. But then it's quite easy, I would say. You can almost recruit into 40%, but what you need, you know, with, I don't know, 6,000-7,000 people in IT at the moment. I don't even know.
It's a lot.
You know, you can, you know, it's not easy, but you can get to that. But what you need is that whole, you know, talent pipeline, and that's what we're spending a lot of time. And I've been fortunate enough to be in there for a long time, and I'm one of the 40% female leaders. And I can, you know, industry overall has about 30% females in IT, and I'm in engineering, which is even less. But because of the work we've been doing, and I'll go into some of the detail, I think I'm tracking close to 40%, which is 10% over average. And that's even recognized within AstraZeneca as industry leading, right? But how do you get to that? And there's like no silver bullet really. So I think one of the things we started with was female leadership programs on the senior level, maybe 7-8 years ago. And you know, as any leadership program, you learn how to be a great leader. But what's really powerful with these things is essentially the network. So you create the contacts, you get your mentors, and you create this kind of close community where you can really share and be transparent and feel safe. So that generated a lot of success, and what we've done now is we're plugging that in on every level of the organization. So if I look at my whole organization, which is close to 600 people, you know, I've been working with that for maybe 5-6 years, and now I can look at maybe 50% of my leadership positions and managers are female, even though I only have 40% of the workforce.
Yes.
So when you create that kind of environment, then you look outwards. And when you go out to recruit, so whether you try to get apprentices, you go to women in tech, you do any kind of hiring, you know, females today that goes into tech, they know they're like gold dust, right? So they will ask you, what's your diversity numbers? And now you can I can stand in front of them and be quite proud, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of generates a whole different engine, which I think is really, really important.
Jordana, to you. You are a successful entrepreneur, very successful entrepreneur, business owner. Why do women make great business owners? And we'd love to for you to share your experience if you may.
Okay, I can't speak on behalf of all women. I feel like this has been my first and only job since I left university. So for me, there wasn't many options for me. I just had to make this work if I was going to carry on with it. And I think what's made me a good CEO is the fact that I'm passionate about the work that I'm doing. I know it's maybe not medicine and stuff like that, but it's makeup. And I'm a very arty person. I absolutely adore what I do. I think the fact that I know that I don't want to ever be fully reliant on a man drives me to work hard every day and get the successes that I want to get. I want to be able, I'm only 26, say in 10 years time, I want to be able to work a couple of days a week, but I still have my own independence and my own money, because I feel like growing up, a lot of the women that I knew were often housewives, and I feel like they spent a lot of time with their kids and it was great, but I know a lot of them felt unfulfilled. And I didn't want to ever feel reliant on someone. So I think things like that drive you as a woman to be successful, especially in this day and age where you've got the opportunities in front of you to make a success of yourself. Why not? I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty fantastic. But I see you got a following of 136,000 on your cosmetics. I mean, that's phenomenal. You must be very proud of that. Do you sometimes pause and reflect and think,
It's
you know, this
bizarre.
is, it seems to be like... I noticed in an interview I read, I think it was in Lancashire Life, that your grandfather or your family are very important to you.
Yes.
So obviously you've got a stability there to think, but it seems it's your baby. You've run with it, and the success is all down to you.
Yeah, we did really well on Instagram. We've moved over now, mainly focusing on TikTok, because it's more of a growing platform. But I think we've got about 47,000 on there. But we've only been doing it for the past year. But yeah, it's going fantastically. But it is bizarre because not only are people buying from businesses these days, especially in the makeup industry, they're buying from people. People like to see my face on there. I go on there crying if I'm having a bad day at work. People like vulnerability and knowing the ins and outs behind a business. I think it's a very glossy industry where you could look at people and think, well, they're so glamorous, they have a perfect life, but people like to see the actual person behind the business and see those women that they can relate to. So I think social media in that sense is really driving this industry forward and making more, I don't know what the word is, but connections with our customers, which is helping us all grow, which is great. Yeah.
Very, very good. Very good. Tracy,
Yes.
you, I think, said when you in your briefing notes, like, as a badge of honour, which is great, like that you joined from a YTS scheme. Like,
I do,
can you, for the panel, chart your story and your journey in the industry and the barriers, if you experience barriers or
yeah, I think,
general...
but what happened, I come from a family of, I had 3 brothers, so I'm the only girl in the family. My mum was a typical housewife.
Yeah.
My dad was an accountant. And it was for me to go out to do something like what we've done even at the YTS stage of life was quite big, really. I went to college initially, I was going to work with children, then I realised they weren't that great. and even though I have got children who I love dearly, but it wasn't my pathway, should we say. And I was, it was very, I enjoyed art, that was my passion. Yeah. So when I joined the YTS scheme and I was actually a kitchen design assistant, it was something, a passion that just grew with me. And I don't think it's my job you could learn at university or anything neither. It's something, I think, like you were saying, it's about passion. I mean, I love what I do. I love every aspect of it. I love the project management side. I love working with the builders. I love working with clients. And it's very much, I found it was very difficult through the pandemic for us because people do buy from people. And when you invest in a lot of money in projects, it's really important that you actually have that trust with people and that connection. And that's what is one of my passions, definitely, is the fact that I love working with people. And for me to stand in somebody's kitchen at the end of the day, to look at the job and they go, my gosh, I've changed my lifestyle of my home with my family, is second to none. It's a fabulous feeling. And to be against my brothers, who are all very, very successful business guys, I remember my mum sort of looking at me going, what are you doing? And I was sort of, and she said, why are you not home cooking and cleaning and everything else? Well, I do that as well as do my job, actually, Mum. So it was something that was quite unusual at our age. I've done this 40 odd years, so it's been a length of time, and this has been my only job, is kitchen design. But I would never change it, and I think I've got a lot of aspects in it that I really enjoy. And I remember, probably 25 years ago, I was the only female in a very, very male-orientated business down at Trafford Park, which was Neville Johnson Kitchens, and he was lovely, and I was the only female there, and that was quite intimidating. And I was the only one that stood up in a meeting and actually had a controversial conversation with him and walked out thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job. And he just came and he went, you were actually correct. you are staying. It's like, oh my God. So it's, I think I've been, with having 3 brothers, I think it's made me, sort of hardened anyway to a degree. And it was just something I wanted to do. I wanted to bring something to the table for my family life. I mean, family are very, very important to me. And my husband now, he's in build as well, so we've got the same sort of interest of things, which is great.
Sarah, it's just touching on what we were saying before about, you've not only worked in the family business, you spent years in London, you worked at the investment bank Citicorp, then you worked within the corridors, as I said at the outset, of Westminster, working for the late Prime Minister Edward Heath as his PA within his private office. But what was it like? I mean, I'm just picturing when Fran said about that conference in December at Grosvenor, and full of guys with just balding heads and suits and stuff like that. What was it like there? And was it?
Well, it's very similar. I mean, really, 90% of the MPs were men, and
Crazy.
secretaries, PAs, all female.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That was, we
Yeah.
go off in the morning and get off the tube, go straight into the House of Commons post office, and it would all be the women carrying the post back to the offices, and
Amazing.
the men with the MPs. Obviously,
Amazing.
apart from Mrs Thatcher, but
Yeah.
but it was.
Irony.
But you didn't really question it. I was only sort of 20, so you just that was life. You're a female, you're the secretary, and
You'd hope it's moved on from there. I know Caroline, your
yes.
great friend,
Yeah.
is still within Westminster. You'd like to think it's moved on from
oh
there.
yes, well no, I mean there's so many women in as MPs, aren't there now? And we had a very brief female prime minister, didn't we, recently?
Trussonomics, yeah.
Yeah. But yes, I suppose over time, it's the way the world's moved on. Then you didn't question the fact that the females were the secretaries.
Yeah.
But now you kind of would. Maybe now,
Yeah.
if I was there now, would I be thinking,
Hopefully
this is
there
my
are-
stepping
yes,
stone
yeah.
to be the MP?
And
Yeah.
hopefully there are some male PAs.
Yes,
now.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Jordana, in your industry, does it embrace diversity, inclusion?
Yes, I think it's getting better. If you look at cosmetics from about 10 years ago, if you went into Superdrug or something, everything would be pale. I know growing up when I was in year 7, there was specific trends and they'd only ever suit my lighter skinned friends, and I'd try and just look hideous and stuff like that. But I think the past few years it's really, really changed. Brands are trying to be more inclusive. And I think just trying to cater for everyone, it's not even just skin tones, but gender and everything like that. Everyone's being a lot more inclusive. And I think these indie brands, which my brand is classed as, it's independently owned brands that are coming up and kind of taking over the makeup game. On social media, people are more invested in these smaller companies as opposed to the big, long-standing ones. And those companies seem to put in a lot more time into being diverse and catering for absolutely everyone. I think because you see those people again behind the brand, they care, they know their customer, they're trying to cater to everyone. Whereas in these massive companies, they just don't seem to care as much. They just rather get the money in.
Yeah.
Whereas we're trying to build a relationship with our customers. So I think it's becoming a lot more diverse, but there does need to be changes, and I think those changes need to come up for the higher up companies as opposed to these smaller companies with less funds.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is changing, it's getting better.
I think that's really interesting what you're saying, what it was like a few years ago, just when...
Yeah, it wasn't ideal.
No, so it's good that that's been overcome.
Yeah.
You try and speak to our higher echelons about what TikTok even is.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one though, because I suppose a lot of what we do we can't talk about because it's just classified, but there is so much more that we could do that we don't embrace because we've always done it this way, we can't do that. There's a lot of can'ts
Yeah.
and
I hate
we've
that.
always done it this way.
People are very stuck
Yeah, it's I think back to what Maria said about the diversity of thought piece. The reason that I got my job was because I was different to what they usually employ. Got a completely different background. I don't understand what makes a reactor work. What can I bring to the table that's different? But you can. And there's a lot of people at school that are going into their GCSE years who I'd call multi-potentialists. They can literally do anything. They could turn their hand to any industry in any way possible, and it's on us to make ours the most appealing to go towards.
Yeah.
Because I could have gone into engineering, I could have done something else. I've tried advertising, marketing. There's lots of things that you can do. But it's as you said, it's getting the snappy content in front of people that they want to engage with, and it makes it kind of relevant
Yeah.
then.
Really just concludes for me on behalf of us all at Arighi Bianchi, and thank you all very much for your time, for your insights, your expert analysis, expert views, We're very proud, as I said from the outset, of having so many females in senior leadership positions here at Arighi Bianchi's, and to have this time just to listen to all your views is immensely beneficial and worthwhile. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.